A single stone, 800 tons, sitting on a platform in Lebanon, cut with edges so clean they look machined, lifted into a position no modern crane could easily duplicate. It has been there for roughly 2,000 years, and nobody can tell you with certainty how it got there. Not a theory, not a best guess dressed up as consensus. The honest answer is that the people who built it did not leave instructions, and the people studying it are still arguing. Multiply that problem by 35, scatter it across 6 continents, and you have the subject of this video. Not ruins, not relics, but structures that keep refusing to be explained. Baalbek and the Trilithon problem. Start in Lebanon, at the Temple of Jupiter. The platform it sits on is built from stones that shouldn't be possible to move. The 3 blocks, known as the Trilithon, weigh roughly 800 tons each. Nearby, at the quarry, lies an even larger block, estimated to exceed 1,000 tons. Modern cranes capable of lifting those weights fill a parking lot and cost millions. Ancient builders didn't just lift them. They moved them across distance, elevated them onto a platform, and fitted them into place with tolerances you could measure in millimeters. The question isn't really how they lifted the stones. The question is how they moved them at all. Karnak's Forest of Stone. Move south to Egypt. Karnak isn't a temple. It's a city of temples, expanded by pharaoh after pharaoh over centuries. The Great Hypostyle Hall alone contains 134 columns, some rising more than 20 meters. Each column is stacked from massive carved drums, and each drum had to be shaped, raised, aligned, and locked into place. Carve one column wrong, and the whole roofline shifts. Now do it 133 more times. The Egyptians built it by hand. Ollantaytambo's impossible masonry. High in the Peruvian Andes, the Inca built Ollantaytambo out of stones that should have stopped them cold. Blocks weighing over 50 tons were quarried across a river and up the opposite mountainside, then transported into position without wheels, without metal tools, without draft animals. Once there, they were fitted together so tightly that earthquakes have failed to shake them apart for 5 centuries. No mortar, no gap, just stone meeting stone in a way that has outlasted empires. Teotihuacan's silent architects. In Mexico, the Pyramid of the Moon anchors one end of the Avenue of the Dead. It's built in stages, rising through layers of stone and earth, and the volume of material moved to construct it is staggering. But the real mystery isn't the pyramid, it's the builders. The city had monumental architecture and clear urban planning, and we don't know what they called themselves, what language they spoke, or why they eventually walked away. The Colossi that traveled 600 kilometers. Back in Egypt, on the west bank of the Nile, the Colossi of Memnon have been sitting for over 3,000 years. Each statue stands 18 meters tall and weighs an estimated 700 tons. They were carved from single blocks of quartzite sandstone, which matters because that quartzite was quarried near modern-day Cairo, more than 600 kilometers away. Somehow, those 2 monoliths were transported the length of a small country and then raised upright. The logistics are so hard to account for that they remain one of the most impressive large-scale moves in antiquity. The Ramesseum's Broken Giant. A short walk from the Colossi is the Ramesseum, the mortuary temple of Ramesses II. It once held a statue that dwarfed almost everything else the Egyptians ever carved. Over 17 meters tall, close to 1,000 tons. Today, only fragments remain, but the pieces themselves are large enough to be monuments. Moving and erecting a single stone that size would stress a modern engineering team. The Egyptians didn't just move it. They shaped it into a detailed portrait and placed it inside a temple complex, Tiwanaku, at 4,000 meters. On the Bolivian Altiplano, near Lake Titicaca, sits Tiwanaku. The stones here weigh over 100 tons, cut with edges so sharp and surfaces so flat, they look almost industrial. The location makes it worse. This is 4,000 meters above sea level. The air is thin, the terrain is brutal, and the quarries aren't conveniently placed. Tiwanaku takes two separate mysteries, transport and craftsmanship, and puts them in the same place. The Olmec heads and their 100-kilometer journey. In Mexico, the Olmec carved colossal heads from single blocks of basalt. Each one weighs up to 50 tons and stands more than 2 meters tall. The basalt came from quarries up to 100 kilometers away, moved across jungle, river, and rough terrain by a people who had no wheels and no large draft animals. Each head is a portrait, individually carved with distinct features. These weren't generic statues. They were specific people, remembered specifically, with enough cultural weight to justify the insane effort of making them. The Buddhas that aren't there anymore. In central Afghanistan, carved into the cliffs of the Bamiyan Valley, two Buddhas once stood, the tallest reaching over 50 meters. They weren't built. They were subtracted from solid rock by workers clinging to scaffolding at impossible heights. The scale alone would have taken decades. Then came the finishing, intricate carving and surface coatings that turned raw stone into sculpture. They stood for centuries before being destroyed in 2001. The niches remain, empty and enormous, and the question of how the original work was done has outlived the statues themselves. Borobudur, block by block. In Indonesia, Borobudur rises in symmetrical terraces, one of the largest Buddhist monuments ever built. Thousands of stone blocks were cut, carved, and placed according to a single unified design. Every level is covered in relief carvings and statues. The symmetry has to be exact. A temple this size won't hold together if its levels don't align. Researchers still study how the design was executed with this much precision across this much stone. The fortress on a pillar of rock. In Sri Lanka, Sigiriya rises almost 200 meters straight out of the landscape. The summit was turned into a palace. That sentence deserves a pause. Builders carved stairways directly into sheer rock to get materials up, then constructed terraces, walls, and water features at the top. At the base, still functioning today in places, are symmetrical gardens fed by an advanced hydraulic system. The engineering shows a sophistication that feels ahead of its time, and the location makes every stage of the work 10 times harder than it needed to be. The caves that have no builders. In China, the Longyu caves were found by accident. Farmers pumping out ponds discovered massive underground chambers carved into solid rock. The walls are smooth. The pillars are evenly spaced. The chisel patterns are identical from one chamber to the next, as if cut to a shared specification. Millions of tons of stone had to be removed to create them, and nobody knows who did it. No records, no tools left behind. A construction site big enough to show up in history simply doesn't. Al-Naslah's clean cut. In the Saudi desert, a boulder sits balanced on narrow natural bases, split straight down the middle. The cut is so clean, it looks deliberate. Geologists generally call it a natural fracture, but the precision of the split, its perfectly vertical face, keeps pulling people back to ask the question again. Sometimes the mystery isn't whether a site was built by humans. It's whether nature can really do something that looks this exact. Tombs hung in midair. In Iran, Naqshi Rustam's rock tombs are cut high into a cliff face, far above ground level, surrounded by detailed carvings. The entrances weren't carved from convenient platforms. They were carved at height, with no clear evidence of how the workers reached them or how they managed to execute the detail at that elevation. The carvings remain crisp. The method remains unknown. The stepwell that goes down. In India, Chand Bauri descends more than 20 meters into the ground in a perfect geometric lattice. Thousands of steps line its walls, each precisely aligned, forming a pattern that looks almost optical. The symmetry is near flawless, which is remarkable because building symmetry downward into an excavation is harder than building upward. Every cut had to be right the first time. There's no version of this site where you can fix a mistake and move on. If you're still here, take a second and subscribe. There are 20 more of these coming, and the strangest ones are still ahead. Hattusa's Fortress of Stone. In Turkey, the Hittite capital of Hattusa spreads across rugged terrain inside enormous stone walls. The Lion Gate still stands. The scale of the fortifications, the tunnels cut through them, and the careful shaping of blocks that had to be hauled across broken ground all suggest a city that was built harder than it needed to be, as if the Hittites were proving something. How they coordinated work on that terrain remains one of the central questions about the site. Palenque's hidden rooms. Another Mayan city, Palenque is known for carvings so detailed they shouldn't be possible with the tools available at the time. Inside the Temple of the Inscriptions, chambers and passageways are built into the structure itself. The internal architecture is more complex than the exterior suggests. Researchers are still working out how it was all designed and executed. Churches carved downward. In Ethiopia, Lalibela contains churches that weren't built. They were excavated. Workers dug down into the bedrock and left a church standing in the pit. The most famous, Bete Georgis, is shaped like a cross and cut from a single block of stone. Every proportion had to be planned before the first chisel strike. You cannot add material back. The precision across the whole complex is remarkable, and the methods used remain unclear. Edzna's Waterworks. Deep in the Mexican jungle, Edzna sits behind a large stepped pyramid and a network of canals, reservoirs, and drainage systems. The water infrastructure is more sophisticated than the pyramid, which says something about priorities. Managing water in a tropical lowland takes real engineering. Edzna had it, and we still don't fully understand how the system was designed. The Mountaintop Tomb. In southeastern Turkey, Mount Nemrut is crowned with stone statues of gods and kings, some over 30 feet tall, assembled as part of the tomb sanctuary of King Antiochus I more than 2,000 years ago. Reaching the summit today is a climb. Getting the stones there in the first place, and then raising them, required logistics that reaching a mountain peak makes barely plausible. The city under Cappadocia. Beneath the landscape of Cappadocia, Derinkuyu extends more than 200 feet below the surface. It once held thousands of people. Living quarters, storage, ventilation shafts, wells, places of worship, all carved out of solid rock across multiple levels. It's less a structure than a removed volume. The effort involved in taking that much stone out of the ground is one of archaeology's quieter mysteries, partly because the city itself is so thoroughly out of sight. The temple the jungle kept. In Cambodia, Ta Prohm was deliberately left in the state the jungle had reduced it to. Tree roots grow through the walls. Stone and wood have fused. The temple was built in the 12th century as a monastery and university of the Khmer Empire, and how it was originally constructed in dense jungle, and how it survived centuries of abandonment beneath the canopy, is still being studied. The obelisks of Aksum. In northern Ethiopia, the kingdom of Aksum carved towering granite stelae, some more than 70 feet tall, weighing hundreds of tons, from single blocks of stone, and raised them upright nearly 2,000 years ago. The engineering required to move and erect a monolith. That size is the kind of problem that would occupy a modern project team for months. The fortress fused to the mountain. Above the ruins of Palmyra in Syria, the fortress of Kalat ibn Man sits so high and so steep that from a distance it looks like part of the mountain itself. Moving construction materials up that terrain to build a defensive complex is the kind of problem that answers itself with a lot of men and a lot of time. But the actual methods involved remain impressive, no matter how you explain them. Stones that predate writing. In southern Spain, the Antequera dolmens are prehistoric burial monuments built from massive stone slabs, some weighing several tons, arranged into chambers thousands of years ago. The communities that built them had no written language and no advanced tools, and yet the stones are still standing. Prehistoric engineering isn't supposed to look this intentional. Rock-cut India. In central India, Udayagiri contains temples and shrines carved directly into solid rock cliffs more than 1,500 years ago. Carving sanctuary spaces into living rock is an exercise in committing to your plan. Every chamber had to be right the first time, and the sculptural detail has to survive within the limits of what the rock can hold. Abu Simbel and the sun. Few sites match the drama of Abu Simbel. During the reign of Ramesses II, the temples were carved directly into a mountainside, guarded by colossal statues over 60 feet tall. But the real achievement is invisible until twice a year. The temples are aligned so that sunlight penetrates the inner sanctuary on specific days. The builders weren't just sculptors. They were astronomers. The tombs of Myra. In modern-day Turkey, the Myra rock tombs are cut high into sheer cliffs, designed to resemble entire buildings complete with columns and facades. There is little evidence of scaffolding that would have reached those heights. The carvings are detailed and consistent. The workers who did this remain anonymous, and the methods they used remain uncertain. Uxmal's round pyramid. In Mexico, Uxmal breaks the Mayan pattern. The Pyramid of the Magician has rounded edges that are rarely seen in ancient construction anywhere. The stonework across the site is curved, detailed, and fitted together without metal tools. The craftsmanship implies a level of engineering knowledge that the available toolkit doesn't seem to explain. Ajanta's cathedral in the rock. In India, the Ajanta caves were carved into a curved cliff face more than 2,000 years ago. A network of temples, monasteries, and halls made by removing rock rather than stacking it. Massive pillars, intricate carvings, and enormous interior spaces were all subtracted from the cliff with basic tools. A single mistake was permanent. The accuracy required across the complex is still being studied. The hill that might be older than civilization. In Indonesia, Gunung Padang looks like a stone-covered hill, but studies have suggested that beneath its surface lie multiple layers of structure, and some researchers believe parts of the site could date back tens of thousands of years. If that proves out, the timeline of civilization has a problem, because advanced construction shouldn't exist that deep in prehistory. Sacsayhuaman's interlock. Above Cusco in Peru, an Inca site is built from stones weighing over 100 tons, fitted together so tightly that a thin blade cannot pass between them. Each block was shaped individually to lock with its neighbors. No two joints are the same. The precision of the interlock is unlike almost anything else in ancient construction, and it holds earthquake after earthquake without mortar. The temple that shouldn't stand. In China, the Hanging Temple is built into the side of a cliff, suspended hundreds of feet above the ground, and supported by wooden beams embedded into the rock. It has been there for over 1,000 years. The beams are placed to distribute weight in a way that should fail and doesn't. It's the kind of structure that looks fragile in every photograph and has outlasted dynasties. Masada's Desert Citadel. Rising out of the Israeli desert, Masada is a fortress built on top of a plateau ringed by cliffs. Walls, palaces, storage, and water systems were all constructed up there, which means all of it had to be carried up there first. Stone, timber, supplies, for a project that would have lasted years. The completed site is extensive and remarkably preserved, which makes the scale of the initial effort even more imposing. The Great Pyramid. And finally, the Great Pyramid, still the most famous of them all, still routinely underestimated. Roughly 2.3 million stone blocks, some internal granite beams weighing up to 80 tons, constructed over 4,500 years ago. Tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years afterward, aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions, base level to within a fraction of a degree. Every proposed method for how it was built, ramps, levers, manpower, has a problem that the proposal doesn't fully solve. That's what links all 35 of these sites. Not a shared civilization, not a shared technique, not a shared timeline, a shared condition. They were built, they are still here, and our explanations don't fully meet them. The silence they sit in isn't empty. It's the sound of a question that has been open for thousands of years and may stay open a while longer. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, stick around. The channel goes deep on the strangest stuff in the ancient world, and there's a lot more ahead.